I think it's interesting you bring up Pretty Woman, because I don't know what you think actually about Pretty Woman as being a romantic comedy. Because for me, I've always seen it more of a romantic drama with some humour, and it's more of a romantic satire. I don't know whether you would agree with that.
I suppose in its origin, much like something like Made in Manhattan, it's kind of a Cinderella story in some respects. You've
Yeah,
got
exactly.
somebody
Yeah,
who's
I'd agree.
down on their not down on their luck per se, but sort of not exactly living their great life, and then they fall in love with someone who's uber rich, and this person who's uber rich falls in love with them, and it doesn't matter that he's poor and she's rich, that she's poor and he's rich, or anything like that, because their love conquers all. And so, I mean, Cinderella and the original Grimm Brothers fairy tale wasn't written as a comedy, so that's an interesting perspective on it. I've always just seen it as the kind of definitive romantic comedy. I called it the Godfather of the genre, but maybe there is a lot more to it. I mean, it certainly works because of the central two characters, and like I said, there is a lot of humour in there, but there are a lot of very dark elements as well. Like when the one character whose name evades me discovers that Vivi is a prostitute, and he thinks that almost gives him the right to sleep with her, and that's a very dark scene. So there is a lot of that going on, and that idea that rich men can have what they want because they've got so much money off these poor women. It's yeah, I mean that's when you think about it, that almost shouldn't be in a romantic comedy, because it's too dark for something that's supposed to be sort of light-hearted and lovable and feel good. But it does have that side to it, so it's a more layered film than maybe I'm giving it credit for.
Yeah, and I think you're right though to say it's the Godfather of the romantic comedy, because it's seen as that way. Certainly, I think audiences and critics see it that way, and I agree with you. I think the film. Well, I mean, the film does have very dark moments. Well, Stuckey, who's played by Seinfeld's Jason Alexander, I mean, he's a truly vile screen villain and a memorable screen villain. And let's not forget, he does try to rape Vivian towards the end of the film. So it's a film that really, for me, has never had that rom-com feel. I do think it's just, I think the script is sharp. I think the structure of the film is really fascinating. If you think of how the film is bookended in the first and last scenes, with the tramp wandering down Hollywood Boulevard and shouting, "What's your dream? Everybody has a dream." This immediately tells you this film is about fantasy, about enjoying outlandish stories in terms of rom-coms for what they are. But the dream is we all want to escape from something, and Vivian is very much trying to escape from a life of prostitution. She's not really looking for a guy, she's looking for a way out. And I think it does very smartly send up fairy tale romance. You think that the prince, Richard Gere's character, he's a businessman cruising for escorts. And if Vivian Wood is Cinderella, she sold her body several times over to make ends meet. And so it's a very cynical film, but it's handled really deftly and with a light touch in to offset the darker scenes that we've just talked about. And ultimately, I think the film does challenge patriarchal conventions of relationships. It's not about a couple ending up, but as I say, a woman breaking free of the constraints that society puts on her.
And that idea of judging doesn't just come from the villain of the piece, but also from the woman in the store. That famous scene where she goes in to buy a dress and she talks down to her, so she walks out and then goes and buys all this stuff and then comes back in. Oh, don't you work on commission? Yeah, you made a big mistake. Look how much money I've spent. And it sort of rubs the store assistant's nose in it for being stuffy and for being too highbrow, and for not looking at a person and judging a person too quickly. We say, how will these stories endure, and we've talked about Pretty Woman being like Cinderella, and then we had something like Made in Manhattan as well, which was again another Cinderella story with Jennifer Lopez and Ralph Fiennes. So these stories are as old as time almost, and I think we're going to continue to see them in various guises, in various ways, albeit with a new slant.